Hi everyone, Comic Reviewer here. This time reviewing on Marvel Action Spider-Man issue number 1, 2021 comic review. Now, as you know, the new version of Spider-Man is meant to be IDW's idea on making a more younger, sort of experienced Peter Parker. Now, in Volume 1 was meant to feature Miles and Gwen Stacy. This one, I think, is more like what Marvel Spider-Man should have been. And there are reasons I never liked Marvel Spider-Man as much. Rushed characters, unlikable ones, and stories that felt extremely rushed. And the cover has Peter Parker as Spider-Man taking on Mysterio and Scorpion. And it starts off how Peter wakes up, gets ready for school, and basically says goodbye to Aunt May. We see how he's trying to balance his life as Spider-Man and goes to an Oscorp sort of school that Aunt May's found for him. We see how Peter goes and takes down 3 muggers, and we see how he quickly takes them down and saying, "I believe this is yours. Hand it over, I'm gonna be late." So of course Peter says, "Yeah, you wouldn't want to be late." Oops. And quickly gets to school, which after changing into his normal clothes makes it to Oscorp Academy, which is an Osborn sort of school. And we see how Peter bumps into the principal, Otto Octavius, who's obviously going to become Doc Ock. And him saying, "Principal Octavius, let me get those papers for you." "Name?" "Peter Parker, sir. I recently transferred here." And so Otto tells him to head off, and you can tell doesn't really like him. We see how Peter basically gets ready for gym, having to keep his spider powers dormant, and deals with Matt Gargan, aka the Scorpion, who's meant to be the gym teacher. We see how Peter meets Cindy, and Flash, and someone who's meant to be Sally Averill, rats Peter out to Gargan, saying, "Parker, get over here!" And so mainly berates him like no tomorrow. And of course, you can kind of tell Peter is a little shell-shocked, and mainly goes to class where he meets Charlie, who's meant to be Charlie Cooper. And of course, they ask about the homework that he did for the project, which Peter forgot and remembers being busy being Spider-Man, and says, I'm really sorry. I'll explain everything to Miss Aiden. It'll be okay." I doubt it. So of course we see Miss Aiden, and this is kind of implying she'll be the female version of the Vulture. And so after Peter hears what they're trying to say, Flash basically fumbles Peter, and basically this is where you can tell Otto is getting more annoyed at Peter for hearing their conversation. And you can kind of tell Miss Aiden does feel bad for Peter, and finds out about him basically not able to do the project, but will let him slide. But of course, Otto kind of says, "Are you really going to play favourite?" And you can tell she does this out of fear, as she knows Otto could fire her or basically blacklist her. And so Peter mainly gets detention before school, and one more strike means expulsion. And we kind of see how he talks to Cindy about the problem, and gives him the kind of pointers on how to avoid Flash and Sally, as well as trying to find his way around school. And even jokes about him joining the photography class, which could fit his forte. And we kind of see how Peter and Nat get back in, and Gargan basically taking joy that he's going to make Peter his kind of lapdog. So we see Peter trying to time manage his skills, saying goodbye to Aunt May again, and this time has to help an old lady with 2 muggers, and knows that he can't let Otto expel him, so basically shows up as Spider-Man, takes on the 2 muggers, and gives the old lady back her purse, and quickly leaves. So we see Peter trying desperately to get to the gyms before being expelled, but Peter finds out to his surprise that he's actually early, and you can tell is back on Doc Ock's good grades. We see how Gargan pushes Peter to sort of set up the gym equipment and tell him that he's no zookeeper. And we kind of see how Peter tries to keep everything cool as he knows Gargan could probably expel him. So we see how Charlie asks how Peter's doing, and basically Peter seeing to his surprise that Gargan can walk up walls. And Charlie saying, "Peter, are you still with me? Come on, let's get to class." And so Peter thinks it's all in his head, but turns out Gargan's actually hiding something, and he's obviously going to be the Scorpion. And this is the story. So I think this issue and the idea is a much better improvement over Marvel Spider-Man. Reason why, it doesn't really feel like they make an Academy full of geniuses. And again, it's got Flash Thompson, Sally, and some of the other characters that don't feel enforced. They actually don't shoehorn Miles, Gwen, and Alia, instead going with a more generic story. And I think this one definitely deserves a thumbs up. Still good, and still alright. So, Comic Reviewer here, signing out.